Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Yeshamai. Before I get into this message, I want to start out by giving all praises, all glory and all honor to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Pakadash. I want to give double honor to the elders and the apostles, a great millstone, whom will teach well, of whom I learn from daily, and taught me this truth through the Spirit, have taught me, and who taught me the truth through the Spirit, through the Rakwakadash, the Holy Spirit. Now, I may end up breaking this read into a couple different messages because I don't want to be too long-winded. But I'm sitting here reading Proverbs 3, and it's talking about wisdom. And then it led me to another lesson from the brother Hazan Hamak, in which he talks about a massive sacrifice in Basra. And as I'm listening to his message, I'm thinking, I'm being reminded of the darkness that we were in, we being the Israelites, you so-called blacks, natives, and Hispanics, the darkness that we were in Christianity, and whatever darkness those of you may have been, because see, prophecy is very clear. Prophecy is very clear in the scriptures. Amos 5:18, woe to you that long for the day of Yahweh, for it is a day of darkness. The prophecies talk about destruction, but Christianity doesn't believe in that. See, Christians believe that Yahweh Shai, and by the way, they don't call him by his name. They call him by the name given to Caesar Borgia, or the image thereof. But Christians believe that Yahweh Shai is going to come down, and it's just going to be from glory to glory. They're going to go from the flatness of the land to eternal heaven. Like everything was just glory. And then, the Israelites go from hell, servitude, to glory. So basically, there is no upgrade for them. Basically, their mansion gets bigger. They get another exhaust added to their Lamborghini. They get another comma added to their millions. They get another. They become that much more stress free. It doesn't make sense. So anyways, I just Googled what is the Christian's hope, and the top part is just nothing but filler. Blah 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 blah, and then this is where Christians believe that they start to get deep. And so we're going to read it from here, and then we'll see how far along we get. The New Testament idea of hope is a recognition in Hamashiach. It is the recognition that in Hamashiach is found the fulfillment of the Old Testament promises. Let's pause there. Well, see, this is the hypocrisy and the craziness of Christianity. In one breath, they will tell you that they don't abide by the Old Testament, but in here clearly we see that they predicate the New Testament upon the Old Testament. So Christianity jumps back and forth. They do believe in it, they don't believe in it, but Yahweh Shai came to fulfill the old one. So the old one's gotta have their foundation is. The earth beneath their feet shakes. They don't have a strong foundation. So let's continue reading. In Hamashiach is found the fulfillment of the Old Testament promises, and then it quotes Matthew 12:21. Christian hope is rooted in faith in the divine salvation of Hamashiach. All right, so let's open up Matthew 12:21. Y'all are gonna laugh at this because this is how simple Christianity it is and how stupid it is. So basically, they just said that Hamashiach came to fulfill the Old Testament, and then they gave you a quote, a scripture of Matthew 12:21. Let's get Matthew 12:21. Matthew 12, and so that Matthew 12, and then let's go 21. And his name shall the Gentile trust. Oh, wow, okay, there you go, boom, that's it. Like, no. Like, would you ever, if you were writing a college paper and you were citing your sources, could you cite something like this? And in his name shall the Gentile trust? No. So why is it that not even in your earthly, in your earthly wisdom, you wouldn't let this pass, but you hang your entire salvation on something so simple like this? See, Christianity quotes you some very simple scriptures, and you guys don't go deep into the scriptures. All right. So now, what what we as Israelites, blacks, natives, and Hispanics, now what we can do once we've learned to read and divide our scriptures that were given to us, you know, and I bring that up because it brought up the Old Testament. Let's think back on the Old Testament. Who was the scriptures given to? Who did Yahweh deal with? Who did Yahweh strike and bring judgment upon? Well, he gave the scriptures to the Israelites, Psalm 147:19 and 20. And he only dealt with the Israelites. As we can see, all the prophets were all Israelites. None of them were Gentiles. And who did he send his judgment upon? Well, he sent his judgment upon the Israelites when they went off, and then he would forgive them. But he always sent fierce judgment upon the nations, the heathen nations, and the wicked. You see, there's a difference between chastisement, and then there's a difference between punishment. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and get that. Uh, chastisement. Because see, the Israelites were chastised, to inflict pain upon, to punish, and recall to duty. What is recall? Recall is to remember. So if you're being chastised, that means that you were given something to remember, and you're being chastised, you're being corrected so that you can remember what the original task was. Well, what was the original task here? The original task was the commandments of the Most High. So, to inflict pain upon, to punish, and remember your call to duty, which is the scriptures. To punish for the purpose of correcting or reclaiming. Reclaiming. Re means to again. Claim. We'll get claim here, but the point is to warn, advise, instruct, or chastise, admonish, to reprove, literally to make pure. Okay, so the difference between chastisement is that you, you're you're whooping on someone so that they can go back to what you originally gave them, to the original task. The different now. Let's take upon a judgment. Okay, judgment. Judgment, action of trying at law. Trial also, capacity for making decisions. Uh, Judgment. Let's see, action of trying at law. Penalty imposed by a court. Any authoritative decision or verdict in a court case, reference to the final trial of the human race in a future state. Also from opinion, sense of discernment, as is first recorded by 1610. Divine allotment, event regarded as an expression of divine displeasure. Okay, so displeasure. See, the displeasure goes to you heathens and to you wicked, uh, to the wicked nation, which is Esau Edom, so-called white man, and the heathens being the other nations that are not the Israelites. See, the displeasure is amongst you and who you are. Um, but that displeasure is different than the displeasure that Yahweh has upon the Israelites. Because, for example, you can be disappointed in your son, but you still love him. But you can be disappointed in somebody that's not related to you, and it's a different kind of disappointment. You will always have love for your son and for your family, but 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 when you're disappointed with somebody else, that disappointment with somebody else is a different kind of disappointment than that of whom you don't love. And so the displeasure with you heathen nations and the wicked, the so-called white race, is different than the displeasure that Yahweh has with his people. So I bring that in to say chastisement. Okay, so let's get here. Let's continue up. So, okay, let's go ahead and read Matthew 12 because again, let's go over what we just covered. One is the flip flop of Christianity between the Old Testament and the New Testament. One breath they believe it, and another breath they don't. And then now we are about to pick apart that simple verse of Matthew 12 and 21, which they hang their salvation upon. Let's start at the top. 12 and 21. At the time, Yahushua went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were unhungered and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. So, why is this important? Because on the Sabbath, you were supposed to be fasting, you're not supposed to be eating. So, here again, we have the hypocrisy of Christianity because they're quoting Matthew 12 telling you that everybody can be saved, but Matthew 12 is dealing with the law, but Christianity says that the law is done away with. But the very first chapter is taught, and as we will read on, we will see that the next couple of verses have a lot to do with the law. Okay? So again, you see the hypocrisy. In one breath, they're telling you everyone can be saved and that the law is done away with, and so is the Old Testament. But then they're quoting a chapter that the first verse is talking about the law. Christianity doesn't line up with what the Bible says. But let's continue on. But when the Pharisees saw it, now the Pharisees were other Israelites, and so they knew the law. So when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. So two groups of people, they both knew the law, so they were Israelites. There is no other nations here because uh, 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 the law wasn't given to the other nations. Okay, verse 3. But Yahushua said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was hungered, and they that were with him, how he entered into the house of Yahweh and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priest? Or have you not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? But I say unto you that in this place one greater than, but Salakia, verse 6 again. But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. What's he mean by that? Because the temple was where they would go to seek the spirit of Yahweh, and Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai was standing right in front of them. He's telling you, y'all understood this when when they would profane and eat on the Sabbath in the temple, but the one the one in the name of who gave you, who was dwelling in that temple, is here. But if you had known what this means, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. So he's basically saying one thing here. First of all, he's not negating. See, in the New Testament, Yahweh Shai isn't saying what you Christians say, the law's done away with. That's not what Yahweh Shai is saying. What he's saying is, um, he's given two examples, and he's saying the law is perfect, but you are trying to legalize it, and you're not understanding it because look at these examples. Okay, so he's not siding with you Christians and saying the law is done away with. He's he's putting context into the law, and he's showing himself to be our high priest, because just as the high priest was eating in the temple, so was he. But we're going through this to show you that this is talking about the law, and Yahweh Shai isn't doing away with the law. But you Christians quote Matthew 12 and 21 as in an open way for all the nations to come in. But Matthew 12 has a lot to do with the law and Yahweh Shai defending it. And when he was apart at, verse 9, and when he was apart thence, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man which had his hand withered, and they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days, that they might accuse him? So again, you see these Pharisees, These Israelites trying to keep the law. Again, which does not line up with you with what Christianity tells you, because Christianity tells you that the law is done away with, but here they are trying to uphold the law, and Yahweh Shai isn't rebuking them for it. He's rebuking them because they're trying to find fault in him. And he said unto them, this is verse 11, one man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, he will not lay hold on it and lift it out. How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Then said to the man, stretch forth thine hand, and he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole like as the other. And so what's Yahweh Shai doing is he's healing the poor man, which is symbolic of Yahweh Shai healing the 12 tribes, you Israelites. He he is restoring us. He's making us whole again. All right, but if you don't have the Spirit, you can't see it. Then the Pharisees went out and held a council against him how they might destroy him. But when Yahushua knew it, he withdrew himself from thence, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them all, and charged them that they should not make him known. Now, why did he do this? He wasn't afraid to die. It just he knew that it wasn't his time to go yet. He still had work to do. Why do I bring this up? Because the famine of the word is coming, and through wisdom the saints are going to shut up their mouths, and prophecy will no longer be heard. Not because we're afraid, but because we know that there are steps, and there are things that have to happen. So, like it is. Let's continue on to 17. Uh, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, "Behold, my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved in whom my soul is well pleased, I will put my spirit upon him, and shall show him judgment, and shall show judgment to the Gentiles." So this is a verse within the chapter that Christians use and say, "Oh, look, there it is right there. Very simple." Verse 18. He's quoting Isaiah that the Gentiles, that everybody's going to be saved. But then again, you bring it up, and it's like, well, wait a minute. You're basing your salvation on the Old Testament, but you don't believe in the Old Testament. You don't believe in the laws. But when the Old Testament is quoted in the New Testament, then you believe in it. But you don't want to go back, and we're going to get some of that. Okay, that's in Isaiah 42. We're going to get some of that so that we can get the full understanding. Okay, we can get the full understanding and see what that chapter is talking about, because the Gentiles in that chapter is not talking about all the other nations, man. It's talking about Hebrew Israelite Gentiles. What do I mean by that? Uh, the Gentiles being mentioned here are the Israelites that went off and started following the customs of the other heathen nations, the other Gentiles. For example, you could a Mexican in Mexico, a native Mexican in Mexico, will consider uh, 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 an American-born Mexican. You are considered American. Okay. Same thing with China. In China, that the way of being in China, it, they consider those Chinese Americans, those Chinese born in America, they don't consider you Chinese because they consider you defiled by the values of Western civilization. Okay, and so it's the same thing. Uh, 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 if you were an Israelite and you were going after the ways of the Gentiles, you were considered a Gentile. Just like, for example, if you're a Mexican born, if you're by blood, if you're a Mexican and you're born in America, what are you considered? You're considered an American, right? But you're a Mexican. But on paper, you would never know that somebody was Mexican if it because their box of race would say American. Only through their name and only through their last name, yes, it's like only through their last name would you maybe have a hint of who they are. So you would have to use discretion. You would have to use discretion to see, okay, he's an American, but his name, he's of Mexican descent. Same thing if you got a guy named Jackie Chan. Okay, so Jackie Chan is an American, but Chan, he's Chinese. Same thing here. You have to apply that same knowledge. You're talking about the Gentiles. But we're going to go into Isaiah 42, and we're going to get the hints that are going to show us, just as we did Jackie Chan is an American, but Chan, that hint, it kind of tells us that he's Chinese. Just like you might have a guy whose last name is Rodriguez. He's American, but wait a minute, his last name is Rodriguez. He's a Mexican, though he may be considered an American by today's standards. The Gentiles are the same thing, and we're going to go into Isaiah 42 and show you that. Well, let's continue on. He shall not strive nor cry, neither shall any man hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed shall he not break, and a smoking flax shall he not quench till he send forth judgment unto victory. And in his name shall the Gentile trust. So now we have completely read from the beginning of the chapter to the 21st verse, which talks about, which is where Christianity hangs their salvation in that one. But now, let's get Isaiah 42. I believe I had to pull up. Where was it? Where was it? Isaiah 42. Yeah, here we go. Behold my servant. This is Isaiah 42 and 1, because now, as we saw Matthew 12 and 21, it's based upon Isaiah 42, and the Gentiles were brought up. Let's get the clue of who those Gentiles are. Which Gentiles is he talking about? Is he talking about Gentiles as in the other nations? Or are you talking about Gentiles, which are the Israelites that went off after the ways of other nations? Let's find out. Behold, my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. It's talking about Gentiles again. Let's find out which kind of Gentiles. Because when you pull up the blue letter, by the way, it gives you, let's get up Gentiles, I believe it's Goy. It's Goy, and it means a nation or a people, and so and then it's got other meanings. It got different kinds of meanings. It's got usually of non-Hebrew people or descendants of Abraham, which are what you would consider Hebrews, or of Israel. So they're completely contradictory definitions, but you have to use common sense and the spirit to find out who it's talking to. So let's read Isaiah 42, and then let's see, is it talking about Israelites that went after the ways of the Gentiles, or is it talking about Gentiles whom Yahweh never dealt with in the Old Testament? He shall not cry. This is verse 2. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto the truth. He shall not fail, nor be discouraged, till he have set judgment in the earth. And the isles shall wait for his law. And we know judgment to be salvation of the Israelites and the destruction of the wicked. And we will see hints of this the further along that we read. Verse 5. Thus saith Yahweh, thus saith the power, Yahweh, he that created the heavens, and stretched them out, he that spread forth the earth, and that which cometh out of it, he that gives breath unto the people upon it, and spirit to them that walk therein. And who did he give his spirit to? Because what is breath and what is spirit? It's wisdom and understanding. It's the relationship. Who did he give? Who did he share his breath with? Who did he speak with? Who did he give his law to? It's talking about the Israelites, man. It's not talking about the other nations, all right? So Christianity can't quote Matthew 12, which quotes Isaiah 42. You see, like, for you to get the real meaning, you have to go into Matthew 12, and then from Matthew 12, you have to go into Isaiah 40. Uh, and then from Isaiah 42, you have to get the whole context. I hope this is still going. Let's see if I can do this real quick. Do not disturb. Damn. So let's continue. But the point that I was trying to get across is that you have to literally go into three layers of it to find the real meaning. And if you're not reading your Bible, if you don't have the Spirit, you'll just take a simple ass verse like Matthew 12 and 21 and put your whole salvation on, man. Motherfuckers will pay more attention to a warranty that they buy for a TV at Walmart than they will their salvation, and it doesn't make sense. You will read the fine print on a chiropractor appointment. You will read the you will read a fucking Apple terms and agreement services for your phone, and pay more attention to that than you will dig into your salvation, man. And it's it's crazy, man. It's confusion. But let's continue reading. Because now it's going to start to get into the descriptive and to the hints of the Gentiles. Because remember, it's talking about Gentiles. So, and we know that there are definitions for Gentiles, which are other people that are non-Hebrew. Then there are the Israelites, or which are from Abraham. So, two completely contradictory types of definitions. Let's use common sense to see which one it is. Is it talking about the Israelites, or is it talking about other non-Israelite people? To open the blind eye. Oh, well, let's start it off at 6. I, Yahweh, have called thee in righteousness. Wow. Who did Yahweh call? Who did he give his law to? Who did he deal with? Was it the Israelites, or was it the other nations? Of course, it was the Israelites. And will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles. So he's talking about blindness. It's talking about bringing him, bringing us back into who we are. Because when you're not walking in the ways of Yahweh, you are in total darkness. That's the blindness that this is talking about. Verse 7, to open the blind eyes. Okay, he's not talking about physically blind. He's talking about spiritually blind. To open those who had shut their eyes to the laws that, according to verse 6, he had called us in, and to bring out prisoners from prison. Now, who was being held in prison? Who was being, who, who was under the rulership of the Babylonians? Or who was under the rulership of the Assyrians in whom Yahweh was dealing with? It was talking about the Israelite people, man. I mean, it's very plain, but you have to go and you actually have to read, man. And this is what we as Israelites now have to do once we have this wisdom. Let's continue on. Verse 7, halfway through, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. I am Yahweh. That is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to give it to graven images. So he's calling you back. He's saying, hey, I'm not going to give myself to anyone else, and my power isn't found in those graven images. What graven images? That image of that white Jesus, or Catholicism, the Pope, the saints, fucking Catholics and their 85 different saints. Motherfucking got saints for thievery, man. It's fucking blasphemy. Verse 9, behold, the former things are come to pass, and a new thing do I do, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. Oh, there he goes, new things. He's bringing new people in. No, he's not. Sing unto Yahweh a new song, and his praise from the end of the earth. Ye that go down to the sea, and all that is therein, the isles and the inhabitants thereof. Let the wilderness and the cities thereof lift up their voice, the villages that Kedar does inhabit. Let the inhabitants of the rock sing. Let them shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory unto Yahweh and declare his praise in the islands. Yahweh shall go forth as a mighty man. He shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. He shall cry. Yea, he shall prevail against his enemies. I have long time held hold on my peace. I have been still and refrained myself. Now will I cry like a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. So wait a minute. So we have now transitioned from waking up the spiritual blindness, all right, the spiritual blindness that was put upon the Israelites when he hid his face, to now he's talking about judgment. Because you see, for the salvation, for our salvation, the victory of one nation is the downfall of another. Okay, let me say that again. The victory of the Israelites, which the scriptures are based upon, is the downfall of another. And who is that other? Well, according to Second Ezra 6 and 9, or 9 and 6, Salakia, it says that Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. That's what I'm talking about. I will make waste mountains and hills and dry up all their herbs, and I will make rivers, islands, and will dry up the pools. Okay, he's talking about the mountains here are forms of governments. Here he's talking about judgment. He's talking about bringing judgment to a government. Verse 16, and I will bring the blind by a way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. Talking about the Israelites who went off. I will make darkness light before them and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them and not forsake them. They shall be turned back. Again, we're getting the clues, because to be turned back means that you were given an original task. They shall be turned back. What was the original task? The laws and the commandments. Follow Yahweh, to love Him with all your heart. They shall be greatly ashamed. What does this mean? How can non-Israelites who were never given the law be ashamed of something that they were never given? How can non-Israelites who were never given the law turn back to something that they were never given the original task of? So now we're starting to see that the Gentiles here, because there are three definitions: nations, non non-Israelites, and then actual Israelites. Now we're starting to see that this is starting to actually line up more with the Israelites. Let's continue on. We're almost done here. That trust in graven images, that say unto molten images, you are our gods. Hear ye deaf, and look, ye blind, that you may see. Who is blind but my servant? Well, wait a minute. Who is his servant? His servant is Israel, the 12 tribes. You so-called blacks, natives, and Hispanics. Yahweh just answered it. Isaiah 42, which your Matthew 12 and 21 is based off of, is talking about his servant Jacob. Who is blind but my servant? Let's go ahead and get that. Psalm 147:19. Because well, no. Amos 3. Amos 3. Amos 3. 3 and 7. Surely Yahweh will do nothing but reveal his secret unto his servants, the prophets. Who were the prophets? The Israelites. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. You got to go through the scriptures and make sure that everything lines up, because his servants was Israel. His servants were the prophets. Psalm 147. He shows his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. All right. You see how Psalm 147:19 lines up with Amos 3 and 7. His servants is Israel. He has not dealt so with any other nation. As for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. Who is blind but my, going back to 19, who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as Yahweh's servant? Seeing many things, but thou observest not. Opening the ears, but he hears not. This is talking about the 100% truth not being preached to you Israelites. Talking about you're not talking about physically being blind, man. It's talking about his servant, the Israelites, not being able to receive the truth. Yahweh is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. So again, it's the Bible, the scriptures are contradictory to the Christian belief, because he's talking about magnifying the law and making it honorable, but Christianity tells you that the law is done away with. Now, verse 22, this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. They are for prey, and none delivers for a spoil, and none says restore. Restore means to buy back, to bring back. And by the way, I do want to point out that this lines up with the curses based on Deuteronomy 28. A people robbed, it's talking about the Israelites. Who among you will give ear to this? Who can hear this truth? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil? He gave Jacob, Israel, the 12 tribes right there, and Israel to the robbers. Did not Yahweh, he against whom we have sinned? For they were not walking his way, neither were they obedient unto his law. That gives you the answer. The whole top verses was talking about Israel. The whole blindness was talking about not walking in his path. The whole deafness was not being obedient to his law. Therefore he has poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and it has set him on fire round about. Talking about Jacob has been given hail, okay? And it has set him on fire round about, yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. Uh, they, they're just talking about you Israelites that are catching up but don't know why. Because we went off. And whether you want to hear it or not, the scriptures are for the Israelites, man. I know that this lesson probably turned out to be longer than what I had mentioned, but it's okay. Hopefully you get the edification from it. Um, but just to bring a full circle here, we saw that Christianity will use a simple verse like Matthew 12 and 21, which is predicated on Isaiah 42, which is in the Old Testament, which they tell you is done away with. But then when you go into Isaiah 42, which Matthew 12 and 21 is quoting, you see that Matthew 12 and 21 was quoted based on salvation for Jacob, salvation for the Israelites, salvation for the Gentiles. I'll say it. Salvation for the Gentiles. And when I say Gentiles, I'm talking about you Hebrew Israelites. You Hebrew Israelites, you Israelites who have gone off and followed the customs of these heathen nations. That's the Gentiles who Matthew 12 and 21 is talking about. I'm talking about you other nations. How it doesn't change, man. I'll do another lesson continuing to break it down, continuing to break down the blasphemy of this here, of the Christian hope. I hope this has been edifying. With that, I say shalom.